We are talking about Claudia Winkleman's new chat show starts on this Friday.
Yep.
So we know Graham Norton's chat show has been on for a long time. They are now buttressing that with a new Claudia chat show. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of chat shows on British TV, why they exist, who wants them. But also, we're going to talk about the fact that Claudia Winkleman, I think, has ended Ant and Dec's 25-year reign as the biggest rating presenter on British television and how she did it.
Excellent. We're also going to talk about, he's got a new album out, Harry Styles, the man, the myth, the music.
He's very much the Alistair Campbell of One Direction.
Leave it now.
Yes, he was the Rory Stewart. He was the Robert Peston of One Direction.
Please. No, we're going to talk about what it means to be that famous and how you even end up making music about that.
And his album will be number one next week. So I'm going to also talk a little bit about the strange reasons. I said I was going to talk about it last week and we didn't, about why the biggest selling single in Britain all this year has not been number one at all. Why that is. It's quite geeky, but
I'm going to love this.
You've got a little kind of starter of Harry Styles. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Octopus Energy.
Some people in the entertainment industry are successful, but a much, much smaller number are genuinely admired.
I was trying to think in TV who everyone likes. I mean, Attenborough.
In movies, Julia, Meryl, these you will not hear a bad word said about any of those people. There are actually very few that no one is rude about behind their back, but those two are certainly two of them.
Can I tell you about a company that no one is rude about behind their back and that people admire? Would it shock you to learn it is our friends at Octopus Energy? Octopus Energy has ended up being named Britain's most admired company 2025.
That's nice.
That's really nice, isn't it?
I'm sure companies are like Hollywood, just absolutely vicious behind each other's backs. But to actually be elected most admired,
all
is
the
pretty
other companies,
good.
like there's all the other companies just sitting around going, "Shall I tell you who I met the other day? Octopus Energy." Actually, you know what? Lovely bunch, really, really lovely bunch. All of them. The most admired company in the UK 2025, which is why we're very, very happy that they are our sponsors.
It's very, very historic that a woman is getting a chat show. She's not the first woman, but we'll end up talking about those. But we've had chat shows that, in fact, we had them when they were on the radio, ages and ages, forever and ever and ever. But they became big in America when The Tonight Show started, and then there was Johnny Carson, and he had them, and then he brought in the monologue at the start of them. So they then became a sort of recognised part of their cultural furniture, and we, needless to say, tried to emulate them. And they had very many, it's interesting the men who they got to do it. Eamon Andrews, who's a brilliant presenter in lots of ways, but was given one of the first chat shows.
He used to do This Is Your Life in the UK.
He used to do lots of things, but he sweated on air so much. It actually became a sort of running joke, and it just didn't work out, this chat show, at all. But then David Frost, who had come from That Was the Week That Was.
They're going, we need someone who's not going to sweat. And Frost sounds good.
He had this thing called the Frost Programme, and he did some in America. This is such a sort of Concord thing. He did some in America. He did 8 shows a week, actually, and was sort of able to do that because of Concord when you kind of fly in and, you arrive before you leave. Then, there were other sort of 60s ones that were really like a vibe. There was Simon D, and that was so sort of shagadelic.
Simon D is probably the most famous person who no one has now
ever heard of.
Talking of falling from a position of extreme fame to being a footnote, I think he might be the leading candidate for that.
I mean, that idea that the swinging 60s actually it was only 17 people at Mick Jagger in London and that everyone else didn't experience the 60s in that way at all. But Simon D would look like he was having
in the middle of it.
Time, and he looked like he was in the middle of it. Anyway, then they go to surely the doyen, Michael Parkinson. And he says, "I don't want a desk." This is one of the decisions that they would have had with Claudia. And what you see that they've got a curve. I can already see from the set, they've got a curved sofa round a coffee table, and all the guests will go together, and her chair, a sort of armchair. But Michael Parkinson said, I don't want a desk. Even though he came from a news background, and he had those kind of Eames chairs, and it was a sort of, but it's extraordinary when you think of he had these amazing guests, and he had guests that returned, not because they necessarily had things to promote, but because they just were, and they became part of the sort of Michael Parkinson law, and also things like the Muhammad Ali law, because Muhammad Ali was one of his most famous kind of serial guests. And when you go back over some of the moments, they're sort of extraordinary. There's one episode, which I was watching again at the weekend, where Ali really goes for him and just, I mean, it's extraordinary. And you think, this could never happen now. I will never see things like this on even the thing of Emu, you think that I would never see that now. Rod Hull and Emu, the puppet, the bird
Or if you
puppet.
saw it, it would be a YouTube clip that had been set up.
Yes, it would be. Everything is so contrived, and these things happened. By and large, they weren't recorded live. Some of them were, but they were allowed to happen. Billy Connolly, who became famous basically by appearing on that chat show. And then there were things like Meg Ryan, which was much later on, and he looked back on it and thought, actually, I was really difficult in that interview.
And also, by the way, he was a terrific interviewer, Michael Parkinson. But anyone who says, "Oh, we don't have anyone like that anymore," it's nonsense. We live in a completely different culture. We live in an absolutely saturated culture where that cannot exist. Where we have so much more access to celebrities these days than we did then. That was a sort of spotlight onto a world that we had no other spotlight onto.
The promotional world is so developed now, the circuit of it all,
exactly,
and how it's managed.
So you could not do a Parkinson these days, and it's not because people are not as talented as him, talented though he was. It's just the world is a completely different place. Yeah,
Claudia's show has been pre-recorded, and most of these shows ended up being, some of them were live, but most of them ended up being pre-recorded. A big part of that was that Des O'Connor Tonight, which was ITV's ITV had various attempts to, they had Russell Harty, they had various attempts to sort of try and beat the dominance of Parky, which was not really possible, who was obviously on the BBC, but and eventually they took him to ITV, but this was so much later in the career. But Des O'Connor Tonight, there is a really famous episode, but I went back and watched it, and a lot more happens on the famous episode where the live goes so wrong for Des O'Connor Tonight. First of all, the thing that everyone remembers is that the comedian Stan Boardman, you won't remember this if you're listening to this podcast, mate, but it's a sort of famous episode and why the show could never be live again. Stan Boardman, who was a comedian, went on and told a joke about World War II flying aces that used the word Fokkers, the aeroplane, a lot. You can imagine where that went. And it's actually a really good joke. And
yes.
I mean, Stan Boardman's got a lot of jokes that wouldn't age well, let's put it that way. But the next guest tonight is Ollie Reed, and they found out he has some sort of tattoo somewhere. And Des O'Connor says to him, "Now, you've got a tattoo in a very unusual place." And he says, "Yes, on my cock." This is all live, ITV, okay? So it's like, what? Okay. The final guest is Freddie Starr.
Oh, man.
Who is, like, I mean, it's quite hard,
They've gone Boardman, Reed, Starr.
I know. It's like,
wow,
on a live show.
I tell you what, that'll be next year's BAFTAs.
Yeah. Anyway, the history of Ollie Reed, by the way, on chat shows could be a whole separate bonus episode. But anyway, Freddie Starr ends up doing sort of V signs to feminists and all of this thing. It is complaints Mageddon. So that is why most chat shows have never been live in the UK. But it's amazing. It's in 86 and it's all in one show. Okay. So then there's people like Aspel, who's never quite, like not Parkinson. Wogan is massive. 3 nights a week. He has iconic guests, George Best. I mean, actually, David Icke, who I think first comes out as the son of God on Wogan.
That's if you're a chat show host and someone comes out as the son of God, you're like, oh, okay, this is good. Okay, I've got something here. Yeah. When everyone's looking for like sort of a news item off the back of their interview. If someone sort of, David Icke starts talking
about...
Former
Coventry City goalkeeper is now son of God. He's quite a good hook.
He's talking about Football Focus, and then he says, oh, no, I am actually the son of God. You are, any journalist is thinking, oh, that feels like we've got something.
Well, yeah, those are the good Icke years. Let's just put it like that. But then things, but again, it becomes very influenced by America, particularly Letterman, who I think is the great sort of giant of all of these things. And then, so Jonathan Ross does The Last Resort, which is a very different sort of chat show in many, many different ways. And then you get to people like Jack Doherty, who Channel 5 launched. When they launched, I think they had him on 5 nights a week at the start.
Yeah.
And when obviously he was having time off, he was allowed to be replaced by Graham Norton.
Yeah.
What a stand-in. I think they both get nominated in the same year.
Oh, God.
Yeah, which must have been
to be nominated for the same show as your stand-in.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really, not good, is it?
And then anyway, but the BBC obviously realised, and Graham Norton does various other things at Channel 4, but the BBC realised he's such a talent, and they almost sign him without having anything. But it's sort of felt that he'll do an interview show, which he has ended up doing. And now, in the off season of Graham Norton,
We have
shall have Claudia.
The fascinating thing about the history of chat shows on British TV is how few of them there are compared to America, where they're the absolute mainstay. I should
have mentioned
Davina
McCall had one. It lasted for something like 8 episodes. It didn't work out. So Mrs. Merton, I always think they did have real people, but it was so brilliant. She's, Caroline Ahern's so amazing. It is really a comedy show. It's not completely fictional like Alan Partridge. Knowing me, knowing you, the first series ever of Alan Partridge. But it is, to me, a comedy program, so I'm not quite including it. Perhaps I should.
No, I don't think you can. But also, there have been hundreds of short run
lots
shows.
of other little.
Every single, pretty much every. You can split anyone who becomes famous into two.
Yeah.
The second you become famous and people go, oh, that's interesting. The public seem to like you. Is there anything you would like to do? Half of all people who are newly famous and who are put in a room with a commissioner, I would say almost exactly 50% of them say the thing I would like to do is a chat show.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's twofold, which is it looks like you're interested in human beings, so it looks like you're a good guy, but actually you're very, very aware that there is an awful lot of you in it, that actually most of it is you. And especially these days when, segments that get, chopped up and put on YouTube are a thing. So I think it's one of those things where certainly if you're a comic, you think a comic is used to doing crowd work and a comic is used to working with people or working with writers and a comic is used to working off people. And so if you're a comic, you think, oh, this is like an hour-long conversation where I do half of it.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly being fed stuff and I won't really have to do any prep. I'll probably have to read a few, briefs about, and I'll probably have to watch someone's film. But really, I can just be funny. So that's what they all want to do. Commissioners do not want any of those people to do a chat show because you do not want chat shows on British TV because they do not rate. They just don't. I mean, it is of no interest to a commissioner. Panel shows rate on British TV and, formats like that. That's the stuff that rates on British TV. And people would always, if you're Jimmy Carr, if you're Alan Carr, if you're whoever, they'd always rather put you in a format. That's how British TV works. However much, that piece of talent would like to do a chat show. And the truth is, they wouldn't want, really don't want to do a chat show. It never makes anyone look particularly good. There's very few people who can do it. Graham, Jonathan, pretty much the only people who can do it. Everyone else fails at it. So the question is, will Claudia succeed? If anyone in the current climate of British television can succeed, it would be Claudia.
I agree.
I would think, for all sorts of different reasons. I did mention at the beginning, I do think it's worth noting where she is in her career and why, when Claudia walks into a room and says, I'd like to do a chat show, they say yes. And there's a number of different reasons. Firstly, yes, she is now officially the highest rating presenter on British TV, and that has been Ant and Dec for as long as anyone can remember. It's like growing up, with the Queen. You just think, I can't ever imagine anything will ever change here. Ant and Dec have been the absolute, top of the ratings for as long as anyone can remember. Huge franchises, and we all know why, because they are sensationally brilliant.
But now their magic mirror is showing someone else to be the fairest of them all.
It's showing, well, because they have a couple of formats which are perhaps towards the end of where they should be, and they haven't yet, done the new ones. Whereas Claudia, so Strictly, which of course is beyond enormous. Traitors has absolutely pushed her into a completely different dimension. But again, we're at the start of that cycle. She's even had a hit on Channel 4. The piano. She said lots of things.
Crofts on Channel 4 this.
It's on Crofts on Channel 4 at the moment. There's sort of nothing that she can't do. People are happy to see her on adverts. She's done radio shows forever. But, it has taken her, it's worth remembering, when people say, oh, they put the same people on all the time. She's been on TV for 34 years before she became the biggest rating presenter on British television.
I remember her 10 years ago saying to me, I absolutely, I just do so many interviews with people, just things behind the scenes stuff that you wouldn't see, not that's on TV or anything like that, just sort of maybe that's corporate jobs or whatever, and interviewing celebrities even, but behind the scenes in kind of closed areas. And she said, that's my, I would love to interview people. And that's 10 years ago. And she's been pretty successful ever since then.
Yeah.
And yet.
And she's only just been given this chat show. She started, as I say, early 90s. She came from a media family, so that, she started as a journalist. She would do travel writing, all sorts of things like that. And then suddenly she's on the, holiday program. She had a career that could not exist anymore.
No.
Okay, the Claudia Winkleman and the Anton Deck of 20 years' time will not start where they started. She had a career that started, as I say, on the holiday programme. BBC Three sort of went, oh, she's fun, she's smart, she's not a comedian, but she's funny.
Yeah.
People seem to find her relatable, which is the absolute kind of golden egg. Is it golden egg or golden goose? It's both, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. The goose lays the egg. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't need to tell you that. So she does an awful lot of work on BBC Three. There are a million formats that she does, and that's why this world doesn't exist anymore. Because and it was the era that I grew up in TV as well, where you were sending 20, 30 formats a year, most of which people would never have heard of. She did a great format, like a dating format on BBC Three called Three's a Crowd.
Oh, yes.
And I think that was the first time I think someone went, oh, do you know what? Why don't you just be yourself, which is a really funny, relatable woman who seems to like other human beings. And obviously, if she came along now, that avenue would not be open to her. She did that. She then, this is why 34 years it's taken her to be the biggest rating thing. That's all I'll say. She says yes to, I will do the BBC Three companion show to Fame Academy.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would do Fame Academy, which God love it, and I was at Endemol when we made it. It was not first string singing talent show.
I was about to say it was a singing talent show. Just for people who
in a big house.
Strangely can't remember it. Yeah.
People in a big house. Up in Hampstead. And back in those days, you did any show like that, you would always do a companion show on BBC Three because it's television was awash with money, and they didn't know where to spend it because all the advertising money went to television, where now it goes elsewhere. Anyway, so there was a lot of money around. So you would make a companion show to a singing show that wasn't a particularly popular singing show. Anyway, she did that. She's absolutely terrific on that. She did it so well that actually when Fame Academy came back, because these things came back, she did the main show. But more importantly, someone else who was making a companion show saw that Fame Academy companion show and went, oh, this woman can really do mainstream, but she can be really funny and she can do whimsy, and she seems to be interested in what people are saying to her, and she seems to be able to come back with it. And those are the people who are making Strictly It Takes Two. Yeah. So they give her Strictly It Takes Two. And when you do Strictly It Takes Two for a few years,
the rest is light entertainment history.
The rest is light entertainment history because you are first in line to do Strictly, which she absolutely does. And that's where she's been in TV a long time. That's probably the first time that the British public as a whole actually knew who she was. That's
mainstream.
Yeah, a lot of people who listen to this podcast, we consume a lot of media. Most people do not. And you'd be amazed at how few people know the people that you know.
Yeah,
and,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it really, Claudia, if they knew her for anything, it would be literally because of Strictly It Takes Two. They'd be go, oh, that's nice. So she does Strictly, becomes, the most loved person on British television. As you say, sort of in the same year as Strictly, I think maybe the year before, she also takes over from Jonathan Ross on The Film Show.
Yes.
Which shows another side of who she is. You can sort of put her in anything. There's very few people who could do a serious film review show, could do Strictly, and could do Crufts, and do all those things and make them better by being who they are. So that's the career that she has had, I would say. And obviously, post that, she's done Traitors. I can go through some of her flops, by the way, because there's plenty. But that's the thing about being a presenter.
When you're hot, you're hot.
Well, most shows fail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, she did one question on Channel 4, if people know that, the quiz show. That failed. She did Eurovision Dance Contest. She did Britain's Best Home Cook, which surprised me that it failed, but it did fail. But, then she does Great British Sewing Bee. She has enough hits that people give her work. And Traitors comes along, and you think, well, who's the perfect host for this? Yeah. Everybody loves Claudia. We'll give it to Claudia. So that is an enormous hit. And all of this is to say, when on Friday night you do or don't sit down to watch Claudia doing that show, do not listen to anyone who says, oh my God, they'll give anyone a chat show. But you know what I mean? This is a woman who's done great work for 34 years on television, who's had a series of massive hits in completely different genres, who, as you say, has shown a willingness throughout all of that time to, behind the scenes, be interested in human beings and talk to people and find out about careers and be interested in different bits of the business. And she wanted to do it. Yeah. And when Claudia goes into the BBC and she's got Graham Stewart and Jo Magnuson and the team at SoTV who make Graham, that is just about the only thing that can make a television channel break the golden rule of never, ever, ever give anybody a chat show. That's the one of the few times where you think, do you know what? That might actually work. And I think for Claudia, I mean, I hope it's a huge success. And as I say, people who were at the recording absolutely loved it. But it is definitively the right idea at the right time with the right person. It might still fail because almost everything does fail. But I just think it's interesting, the career that she's had, the work that she's done, the popularity that she's gained over the years, and it's taken her 34 years to get a chat show. But it is quite
historic, a woman doing it, I have to say, because
a high-profile one.
Yeah, if it works, it will be historic. I mean, I was thinking, obviously Parky is amazing, but for me, maybe the best interviewer completely is Kirsty Young. I think she's absolutely phenomenal. But that's a different thing. She did Desert Island Discs, and it's done in and that's on the radio, and that's separate to this.
But which, of course, is a chat show. I mean, that's the point.
But she is but if you listen to, I think she is peerless, honestly. Okay, the first guests, we know who they are. So can we just talk about, if you're putting together this lineup? Yeah, okay, right. So Claudia's first guests are Jeff Goldblum promoting his band, the Mildred Schnitzer Orchestra.
I mean, listen, Jeff, if you want to come on, you're sorry, you're promoting what?
Yeah,
fine.
Sorry, I'm sorry,
you know what?
Now?
Fine. We will, of course, we'll do a quiz. When you watch it on Friday, time how long they spend talking about that band, unless it's a bit, unless they go, why don't you play us something, or why don't you do, or you turn it into a sketch.
Yes,
that's a possibility.
Vanessa Williams, who's been playing Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada in the West End for quite a long time now, so it's not like she's starting next week. Jennifer Saunders, National Treasure covered, who's going to be in The Magic Faraway Tree, which is new and which is coming up, and Tom Allen, who's got his new book Common Decency.
But he's a great comic.
Yeah, so that thing of plugging, yes, Jeff, I'm sure he will be plugging his band. What do you think about that mix of guests?
I think that this show will live or die on its production. Nothing else.
Right.
It just will. If they make it well, if they've got interesting items, and as I say, they've got interesting audience things, and if it allows Claudia to be Claudia.
The audience, by the way, they've said they sort of want them to dress up. So that gives you a sense of maybe what they're going to try and go for. Yeah. They've said something like no gilets, no sort of, not your workaday clothes. They want you to be like, we're all getting glammed up for a night with Claudia. As far as I can see from there have been instructions as to what they should wear.
To turn it into something. And as you say, Claudia's been planning this a very, very long time, and she's got great producers as well. And we are aware that we are in a world where chat shows, you look at the late night stuff in America at the moment, and it is all about what you clip from that and what are the bits, and how you make your host a personality, and the guests sometimes are sort of ciphers, and it works for them because people are watching, and you do get to talk about your band. It's whether it gives Claudia the opportunity to be Claudia, and if it does, then people will want to come on because it will get good ratings, and that's all you really want in return for going on a show.
Look at Graham; he's now in Taylor Swift videos. He's going to the wedding. It's hilarious.
But he is sensationally good at what he does, and people are quite bad at alternate realities of how differently you could do that show, and almost everyone would do that worse than Graham. It's sort of, he makes it look effortless. If anyone else can do that, it is Claudia. She certainly has the goodwill of the British public, that's for sure. I don't want people to say, I can't believe, oh God, will they give anyone a chat show? No, the whole point is they will give nobody a chat show. Nobody who has any money in television wants to spend it on a chat show. No one. This is
anyone who's listened to this show, Richard, now knows that for sure.
Yes.
And they will take your message out into the wider world, into their living rooms, and they will impart it to anyone who doesn't quite understand it.
That said, Channel 4, I would be interested in doing one. I'm sort of free. I'm free now. House of Games, my bit of it is done, and I like talking to people. That's me. I like talking to celebrities. I would do every single celebrity always goes. Everyone pitches this. Newly famous people always say, I want to do a chat show, but with ordinary people.
That's our new section, I Could Do That, in which every week Richard will pick a piece of television that he quite likes and just say, I could do that.
I couldn't do it, though. I'd be terrible at a chat. I wouldn't be any good at a chat show. It's really, 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 really difficult to make a
I
chat
think
show.
you'd be good.
No.
I don't think that's true.
No,
but
I'd prefer
I know
to do a chat show with ordinary people. I think that's more fun, and I
that's fun.
do think there's a show there.
Has
But
anyone ever done that?
but it's what everyone pitches.
Oh, really?
Everyone always pitches that, and it is interesting.
Because actually, do you okay, just as a sort of, the Observer always used to have that feature in the magazine. They have this much do I know, and sometimes they have famous people do it and tell you all the sort of their theories on life. It's so much more fun when they get like a florist or a bikini waxer or whatever.
Well, because you learn
tell you all the stuff. Yeah, it's really, really interesting.
Well, that's what because there is a point at which doing a chat show is the law of diminishing returns, because everyone who is on a chat show has been on so many chat shows, and is
tell me a tiny bit more. So people always pitch the real life people chat shows,
yes,
but it never.
Yeah, well, because no one wants chat show.
It's a fantasy.
So they're like, you can't say a chat show with real people without saying chat show. The truth is, ordinary non-showbiz people can be much, much, much more interesting if you've got a good booker, which is what you need on this, is they've spoken to people with extraordinary stories, or who do extraordinary jobs, or who can tell you something about an ordinary job that you wouldn't know. That's fascinating, but it is still a chat show, and therefore it will not get made.
Yeah.
We had an idea once called the Chat Show of Doom, which I really liked, which you had 5 guests and the audience would vote off the most boring one after each round. So the first round would be, give us an anecdote from your school days. And the second round would be, bring on a friend. And, the third round...
Are these real human civilians or celebrities?
They're celebrities.
Oh, well, then it's fine. Otherwise, I thought it sounded inhumane.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no, we wouldn't. Yeah, that works with celebs. And then, the people who get voted off stand on the sideline and they can ask questions.
I like that.
That's kind of, I know, but that, again, back in the days of TV when there was so much money, probably could have get made. But anyway, I absolutely digress. Claudia is doing a straight up chat show. There are very, very, very few of them, and I wish it every success. It's got absolutely the best people involved with it. Almost all television fails, but I have my fingers crossed for this one. 10:40 on Friday.
Friday the 13th, as Claudia has been the very first person to point out, of course.
That's good, but that's Claudia all over.
The self-deprecation is the persona.
I mean, yeah, of course. She would have been the second they go, that's Friday the 13th. Is that the problem? She'd go, no, that is perfect. I have absolute plausible deniability.
Right. Please, I think we should take a break now, but do join us after the break where we will be talking about Harry Styles.
He'd be a good guest.
Oh, he'd be a super guest.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble.
Now, Richard, people get very nervous before sending the first message on dating apps. Your finger hovers over the phone screen thinking, am I actually going to do this?
Yeah, they debate if the person is who they say they are and if replying is going to feel comfortable or mildly stressful.
But Bumble's photo, number and ID verification makes it much clearer who is behind the profile, giving you the subtle reassurance that lowers the stakes of sending the first hey.
And when that pressure drops, something interesting happens. Profiles become more relaxed, more specific, and way more human. And the conversation just starts to flow.
This is why Bumble is an app people trust, the one friends recommend, because safety and confidence are what lets real connection happen in the first place.
So show more of the real you on Bumble.
Welcome back, everybody. Now we're going to talk about Harry Styles, who's got a new album out, titled Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally.
Yeah.
I was trying to think what it reminded me of, and I couldn't quite. And Alexis Petridis, who I love, who's the Guardian sort of music writer, said it sounds like something you'd see on a poster in a kitchen next to a sign informing you that it's Prosecco o'clock. And it's very interesting because he's, without question now, one of the sort of most famous guys on the planet. It's he's still pretty young. He's had some time away. Well, in the modern world, this is called having some time away. His last tour finished in 2023.
Lazy.
And he's well, he went away. He went to Italy. Also brought out a sex toy range. He's diversified.
Sure.
To give you, we'll come back to this, but to give you a little window into what it's like being Harry Styles, I think he did an interview saying that he'd really loved being in Italy and taking this time away, and he loved the pace of Rome and being able to sit and just have his coffee and just he thought the Italians were great or something like that. The level of backlash on that from online, from like, you don't understand anything, or you don't understand Rome, you don't understand the modern world,
God.
You're so privileged. This is what it's like to live in a world where you just say, I've quite enjoyed having a cup of coffee and not having to be in a rush or something. I was thinking about something like, Alanis Morissette bringing out a song called Thank You, which is, the chorus is Thank You, India. Let me tell you, you could do things like that 30 years ago. These days, you cannot have an interview about saying how you quite like not having to do anything in Rome before people kind of completely kick back on you. And so it's interesting living in a world where anything you say can be backlashed against. And I think we'll come on to that as we end up talking about him more. But in order for this new album, he's not going to tour particularly. He's going to do residencies. He's doing 12 nights at Wembley and 30 nights at Madison Square Gardens, which is totally extraordinary. And he's obviously decided that he doesn't want to particularly move around. And you're at that stage, which is sort of difficult, I think, when you're a music artist, where you can do whatever you want if you're as famous and as successful as Harry Styles. That is actually, it's to some degree dangerous territory for artists, but you can. And so the fans will have to come to him. And obviously in the US, that involves airfares and hotel rooms and things like that. And the prices anyway for these tickets are very, very expensive. And even Liam Gallagher was sort of joking that, oh, look, our Oasis tickets are quite reasonable now. Anyway, this is all the backdrop to him bringing out a new album. And I have you listened to the new album?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a huge Harry Styles
I love
fan.
Harry Styles.
It's a bit more, I'm going to do a slightly cooler album. But yeah, I love it.
Yes, because you don't know what it's on about quite a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I do think that's interesting in a world where all of, the endless Easter egg culture and the endless trying to work out what everything means in the lyrics. Even though he's quite obviously like the you of the album, he talks about you doing this, you doing that, and he's sort of talking about himself. It's quite, you don't really know what Harry Styles is talking about. And there is a point at this stage in an artist's life where they can kind of only write music about being an international pop star.
What else is there? Yeah.
Someone like Taylor Swift manages to do it and make it relatable. I think that this is, I don't know, I found it quite hard to quite a lot of it sounds like absolute gibberish, the lyrics. I mean, really gibberish. And I wonder if there's something about, if we talk about the background of Harry Styles is managed by these guys, by Irving and Jeff Azoff, their father and son. Some people say they curate Harry Styles. You see, this is the world he has to live in, where they stage his life and that none of this is true. And the Azoffs themselves have become a sort of fan conspiracy kind of lightning rod, and the idea that they've created this creature, this confection, this whole facade, because as we know, the whole drive of everything now is to say, no matter how much more polished things have got, or also how more raw and authentic things have got, the whole drive of fandom now is to say, this isn't what it is. This is, you're selling me an image and this isn't true. He doesn't go out with these women, or he doesn't, there's something that's being hidden from me here, but I know what it is. And I think it's interesting what happened with the One Direction fandom, the 1D fans, Directioners, those ones forged in the fires of 2010's Tumblr. Those were hardcore, okay? They were really hardcore. The level of death threat, the level of this or that, just bandied out ridiculously over tiny things. That energy, I don't think, has been destroyed, but it has kind of morphed. And there are whole weird schools within this fandom, which is why people always think, I don't believe things about Harry Styles or whatever, although these people do. There's a Larry Stylinson conspiracy. Are you aware of this?
Larry Stylinson?
This is that Harry and Louis are together. They've always been Harry from One Direction, Louis Tomlinson.
But they had that in the Spice Girls as well, didn't they?
Hang on a second. That actually did happen.
Oh, okay. I take it back.
But no matter how many times Harry and Louis have denied it, that shipping culture, that idea that you want these relationships to be real,
I don't see the two of them together.
No.
Do
well,
you?
there are, so the Larrys, the sort of fandom subgroup who just believe that Louis Tomlinson's son, Freddie, is like a staged event, and that they have a series of actor babies and now growing up young toddlers that are sort of shipped in. But the level of how they read stuff into things, they've got this other whole conspiracy theory that attended One Direction, the rainbow bondage bears. The crew put some teddies round in the sort of final concert, and some of them had sort of unusual costumes. They were read as secret messages to the Larrys from Harry and Louis that they were on the right track. Keep digging, guys, because you're correct. These rainbow bondage bears are sending you messages.
That's how I would do it if I was having a secret gay affair with a bandmate and I wasn't supposed to say, but people had got it. I would go, do you know what? Teddy bears.
Someone get down to Hamleys.
Rainbow, but also bondage.
Yeah.
That should let them know.
So I guess my point about bringing all this stuff is, how do you make music about any of this stuff?
Yes.
If you live in a world of insanity and anything you say, he's actually, Harry Styles says so little about for someone who's obviously sort of very open and has to feel like someone who's confessional, he says very little about things. There are certain things. There's a track called Medicine that he plays live that talks slightly about messing around with boys and girls, but these are just tiny lines. There are whole fan treatises, millions of them online about all of these stuff. And I think that it becomes really hard when you're that famous to then either you kind of submit to this culture and say, okay, I will do what Taylor Swift is and allow it to be and write these songs that I can or not just Taylor Swift, by the way, many, many people, and write diss tracks, or I can write things that people can interpret in their own way and I know how they're going to interpret it and I have some form of control over this. Or you can just become quite sort of obscurantist. And I do find when I'm listening to this album,
what else are you going to do?
You're just trying to kind of be out there, but also hold yourself back.
Well,
it's
you
quite
must,
difficult.
every lyric you ever write, you must think, oh God, no, hold on.
I know what I'm going to say.
Someone could say that.
I know.
So, you do sort of, it's
but
like
that's what I'm saying. This
either
type of
incredibly
fandom,
specific or incredibly vague. You can't be anywhere in the middle.
Yeah. And modern fandom, this type of obsessive fandom has been incredibly creatively destructive. And I think that...
For me, for sure.
For you can't say anything.
That's why I gave up House of Games.
Yeah.
It was too much. The stuff that they were reading to the silver owl behind me.
Yeah.
It's just an owl. Come on, guys. It's
you
just
would say
an owl.
That's a message to people that it's not just an owl and they have to keep digging.
There is nothing happening between me and Alexander Armstrong.
Yeah.
I promise you.
But
would that there were.
Well, now you said that. But I do think I think it makes it very, very difficult creatively.
Yeah.
And here's something else that I was thinking about the weekend. Why do we have the...
I'd love to be inside your brain sometimes.
No, you wouldn't.
Just go, oh my God, Marina at the weekends.
Is there, I was probably just doing the washing up, but there doesn't seem the same camaraderie among the big male artists in the world. There is a sort of weird sisterhood, even if they don't acknowledge each other amongst the women. And I thought partly that's because all women in the public eye will have had some similar experiences, will have experienced obsessive fandom in the same way that perhaps only women feel that in that particular way. But I don't get the sense that there's a camaraderie between,
Harry Styles and
Kendrick
Warren.
and Bad Bunny or whatever. I mean, they all come from incredibly different places, obviously. But I don't have that sense that in a world of sort of solo artists, almost exclusively sort of big solo artists, I don't get that sort of vibe. Do you?
Yeah, he feels like he feels in a class of one, Harry.
Yeah.
In lots of ways.
They're all in a class of one.
And I know he's surrounded by great producers and writers and Kid Harpoon and people like that. And he seems to be surrounded by good people, as far as I can tell. He certainly seems to be surrounded by good collaborators who are making great music. But yeah, I guess it's funny where people having started in a boy band that was so, even for a manufactured band, that was super manufactured.
Yeah.
Like they were all chucked out of X Factor and then they were all called back in, even though
it was like reconstituted meat.
But even though they were the 5 most handsome people in the category, you go, that's weird. They got rid of Harry Styles, the most handsome boy in the whole world who can also sing, and they put some other people through. Anyway, so that the whole thing had been so weirdly kind of put together in such an artificial way, and he seems to have. I'm sure, as you say, with his managers, there were people behind the scenes suggesting ways and means of putting his career together. But he seems to have chosen incredibly good collaborators and incredibly real collaborators, and he seems to be quite an authentic human being.
Yeah,
and he seems to enjoy his life. Talk to me through why. And how much why these tickets are so expensive? They seem insanely expensive.
Some of them, the top prices are hugely expensive.
But that seems unusual. That seems a misstep to me.
Well, I agree that it seems a misstep, and particularly when you're doing residencies. If you're saying, okay, I'm going to go to Manchester, I'm going to go to Denver, I'm going to go across. Yeah. I'm going to travel across countries and you can come as close as possible. If you're saying you've got to come to Madison Square Garden, which is, fine if you live in New York.
Well, it's like people who have a destination wedding and then don't have a free bar.
Oh my God, what if they also then do a destination hen weekend? Okay, that is a war crime, and I could do I can't get into it.
Yeah,
you've done both.
Charging that much for tickets for a residency is essentially like having a destination hen do and a destination wedding.
And a destination wedding.
Oh, I'm more of a destination stag for Harry.
Yeah, and then still doing a wedding list of presents.
God, Harry would have a great stag.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I think he would. I think it would be.
I wouldn't know. You know what? I wouldn't know what to wear to Harry's stag.
He'd get one of his friends to find you some clothes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I'd like to see you in the Harry Styles
stag,
look.
the Harry Styles,
The Harry Styles look.
the Harry Styles universe.
So the tickets are very, very, very expensive, and there are people who say that this is just that. I mean, we've talked a lot about ticketing and how people, and it's all live, and how people can just do sort of what they want. You don't have to, and I think even the cheapest tickets here. If Liam Gallagher's making a joke about them being very, very expensive.
But is there a bit of it? Is it sort of saying because there's only room for so many absolutely mega brands, and really you want to be world conquering in every way? So Harry Styles would like to be the male Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift definitively. There's some huge female stars. I'm going to talk about one in a second out there in the world, but she is above all of them.
Yeah.
And is there a bit like Stella Artois is reassuringly expensive? Okay. Is there a bit that says
that's not promotional?
You have to show your loyalty to me. You have to show my primacy in the world pop culture by paying that much money for tickets. That's how big I am.
And part of what I was saying to you earlier when we were talking about this is that stage where you can do whatever you want, and you can say, actually, I'm not going to get on the tour bus. I'm not going to travel around the United States. I am just literally going to get people to come to me. You can do it, and it does show your power. Whether you should do it is another matter. And I realise that touring is grueling, and if you found your great headspace in Italy, maybe you don't want to do that. But if you are going to do it there and stay in one place, then you have to factor in the cost of doing these things. I think it's if your sort of message and your vibe is, I am Mr. Inclusive, as we've talked of before, there's nothing, you can't really be inclusive when you cost this much.
I guess, but I wonder if it is like, like De Beers holds all of the diamonds and just lets them come bit by bit to make them artificially expensive. I wonder if there is a bit that says, do you know what? If you are come to see me, you are not going to be able to afford to go and see Alex Warren or Benson Boone. It's just me. It's just Harry.
Well, that's why the conspiracy theories now kind of funnel so frequently through the management, because nobody wants to think that the guy they love is like this. So you have to think that there are people who are making him behave like this.
No, he can do what he wants.
Exactly.
But
you see, it's all part. But this is why people have to feel that, because you don't really want to think that Harry Styles would rinse you without a second thought. So you have to think.
There's plenty of people going, you know what, he could rinse me without a second thought.
Well, quite right.
Yeah.
But what they really want to say is, no, he is under the thumb of management who are making him do this. That isn't how it works.
Anyway, the album is terrific. It's going to be number one this week. He's also had a number one single this year, Aperture, which leads me, can I do this geeky chart thing?
Please do it.
So Aperture is the only song this year that would have been number one apart from Man I Need by Olivia Dean. Yes. So Olivia Dean's Man I Need has been the best-selling single in the UK all year. Like the whole of the year, apart from the 1 week of Harry Styles. However, it has not been number one at any point. And so I just wanted to talk about why that is. It's quite geeky, but if you're interested in the charts, I think it's interesting. So I think most people know now the charts are based on sales and streams. And the way it works is one sale is one sale, one physical sale. But it is 100 streams equals one sale. Okay. So a sale, a physical sale, that counts as one. A stream, 100 counts as one. And you add the sales together with the streaming, and that's where you get your chart position. Now, Man I Need came out last year. It was number one for 1 week. It was in the top 10. It was number two for 7 weeks, I think. It was in the top 10. It's been in the top 10 for 24 weeks. Huge song. Definitively Olivia Dean's biggest song. And she's become such a massive artist. But it is currently, this week, again, it's the biggest selling song. It's number 8 in the charts. And the reason that is, I just think, again, I'll say this because I think it's interesting. And if you're interested, by the way, in anything geeky in the charts, it's an amazing blog called Chart Watch by a guy called James Masterson that I read every week. I'm fascinated in the charts. Anyway, but you can read about all this stuff. But the reason that it is not number one is there is a thing called ACR, which is Accelerated Chart Ratio. So
first time on the podcast?
Yeah. You get SCR, which is Standard Chart Ratio, which is, as I say, that thing of 100 streams is a sale and a sale is a sale. After 10 weeks in the charts, if you've been in the charts for 10 weeks and you've had 3 consecutive weeks of declining sales, you go into ACR, which is Accelerated Chart Ratio, and then you have to have 200 streams to count as one sale. And that's to try and stop the charts being clogged up by the same songs like endlessly. Which,
even though they are.
Oh, they're insanely clogged up. But it would be even more clogged up. And Man I Need, after the first 10 weeks, had 3 weeks of declining sales. So from that moment on, it's had to have 200 streams for every single sale.
Right.
And that's meant that it has outsold every single number one this year, apart from Harry Styles, but there's never been number one. The song that is number one at the moment is another Olivia Dean song. And it's the Olivia Dean and Sam Fender duet, Rain Me In. So that's number one. As I say, sold fewer than the other one. But that has been out. It went to number one 3 weeks ago, and holds the record for, it had been in the top 40 for 35 weeks before it went to number one, which is a record. There's been lots of records that took years and years to get to number one, but that had been consecutively in the top 40 for 35 weeks before it hit number one. If you look at the chart sales of it, it has never had 3 weeks in a row of declining sales. So it has never gone into ACR. It is still in SCR. It's still 100 streams for a sale. And a couple of times it's had 2 weeks in a row where it's dropped, and then the next week it's gone up again. So it's never, ever, ever gone into ACR. So that is number one, despite the fact that Man I Need sells more copies. A song like Ray's Where the Head Is My Husband, it's about number 14 this week. That went into ACR after about 10 weeks as well. So all of those old songs, the ACR songs, will be much, much higher up the charts. But because of this thing which is attempting to stop there being all of these kind of
stop it being gummed up,
songs,
even though it is so gummed up.
There are 19 songs in the top 100 at the moment that have been there for over a year.
God.
19 songs. I'll go through some of them. Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter is still in there. Good Luck Babe, Chapel Rowan. Stargazing, Miles Smith. Apata, of course. Stick Season is still in the charts. That's So True, Gracie Abrams. Messy, Lola Young. Lose Control by Teddy Swims, that's still in there. You've still got Mr. Brightside by The Killers, which has been in the chart for 495 weeks. But without ACR, these things would be even higher up. So it's an attempt to stop this happening, but the charts are not what they were. That's why you don't have Top of the Pops anymore, because it's the same songs week after week
but don't
after
you have
week.
that feeling? This is what we've been talking about before, which is that sort of slight feeling of cultural inertia, and that you're sort of stuck in treacle and you can't move forward in the way, at the speed of which you did, because a huge part of modernity is the kind of shock of the new. And there are obviously bits of UK music that are the kind of sub-genres that are very avant-garde, and there's lots of churn, and it's very interesting. Something like drill or whatever it is, or I don't know, experimental indie or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
There's lots of amazing music out there.
Is becoming very conservative.
Well, it sort of is. I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, there are so many amazing pop. I mean, there's so many huge, amazing pop tunes. They just hang around for a really, really, really long time. In a way, they sort of come classics long before the classics of the 80s did.
They're like catalogue.
But
when they're new. But
something like Ordinary by Alex Warren, which has been in the chart for over a year. It's a great track. Beautiful Things by Benson Bean. These songs, but they hang around for a very, very, very long time. The other thing they try and do is, so for example, Harry Styles' album's got 12 tracks on it, I think. Or
I think so.
All 12 of those would hit the charts next week because of streaming. So you don't really suffer as a single anymore. It's literally just a single track counts as a single. All 12 of those would be in the charts, but you're only allowed 3 tracks in the chart. So your 3 highest selling songs will be in the chart. Olivia Dean, funnily enough, has got 4 because one of her songs is this duet with Sam Fender. Bruno Mars has got 4 as well, but you are only allowed 3, which means that the top 10, otherwise the week Taylor Swift's album comes out, the top 10 would all be Taylor Swift, and the week that Harry Styles comes out, the top 10 would all be Harry Styles, which again you can't have.
Music is somewhere that you're not feeling that the culture is propelling in you because things hang around for so long, and you definitely feel it in video games, yes. Yeah. Visual arts, for sure. Hollywood films, no.
Yeah.
Everything feels retready. TV, sometimes, but not really. Pop music, no, I just don't think so. I think they're kind of in the risk management business. I think it's becoming very conservative. I do think that the things that hang around and the sense of it, just these kind of hegemonies that just go on, it's not the same. It doesn't feel experimental.
I think this might be a chart issue rather than a culture issue, is what I will say. So I love the charts and I fetishize the charts and I look at it every week. And as I say, this amazing blog, Chart Watch, if you're like me, it's great. It's full of amazing little facts and where the charts are going. But if you forget the charts, which most people do, actually the amount of music and the quality of music and the diversity of music is kind of never been better.
I agree with that, but this is what people are actually what most people are listening to, and that's why the charts, even though they seem an antiquated concept, are not, because it is actually quite interesting to find out what most people are listening to. And so even though there is all this other stuff out there, there is a sense of hegemony.
Yeah, but that's just popular culture, isn't it?
Well, I don't think it has always been, actually. I think that it has felt much more dynamic. And I actually think that as I say, something like gaming or visual arts, where you do think there is a dynamism, you feel less of that in pop.
Yeah, maybe. I just think we live in sort of one of the glory eras of pop music. That's for sure. So we probably don't live in the glory eras of, new, young, cool bands playing in small venues, which is a shame because that's what I grew up with. But I definitely think we're living in a golden age of pop music. I will, to bang a drum, I've banged many times before. 19 of the top 20 are solo artists.
Yes.
There's only one band in the top 20, and that's the Italian house band Milky. So, that's the charts for you. But I know it's geeky. I'm aware it's geeky. I thought that people maybe don't know. ACR and the fact you only allowed those 3 songs in the chart at any given time explain a lot of. They're desperately trying to unclog the charts. It is almost impossible. I mean, there's 2 Fleetwood Mac tracks in the top 100. I mean, come on. And I like Fleetwood Mac, and I cannot lie.
No one's saying you don't like Fleetwood Mac.
Any recommendations this week?
Yes, I would love to recommend a new novel, which is out on this Tuesday. Look What You Made Me Do by John Lanchester, who wrote Capital. He's sort of writes lots of novels and also a brilliant sort of essayist. It's got an entertainment angle, Richard. It's about a recent widow is forced to sort of excavate her marriage after the hit TV show of the year, like the one show that everyone's talking about, appears to be completely based on her marriage. And it is a black comedy about intergenerational resentment and loathing, I would say. Yeah, boomers v millennials. Anyway, it's funny. It's really good. So I would recommend that. Look What You Made Me Do by John Lanchester, which is out today.
I'm going to recommend 2 home renovation shows, both on iPlayer. One is the Alan Carr, Amanda Holden renovation shows. This one is the Greek one. They're so brilliant. I think they are the best of Alan Carr and the best of Amanda Holden at the same time. They're so delightful in these shows. You genuinely see something about them, and their relationship is delightful. And they're doing up a house, but I mean that's by the by. On it, there's so many laughs in that show. I think Alan and Amanda's Greek adventure, but also. If you enjoyed Designing Hebrides, which I talked about before, Banjo, who started on Interior Design Masters with Alan Carr, it all comes together. This is like my version of Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson. He and his husband, Ro, are doing up a hotel on a tiny island called Ulva, which is just off Mull. And it's really, really, really beautifully made. And their relationship is lovely. It's called Banjo and Ro's Grand Hotel, I think. And it's just really a very, very charming look at island life. Again, they're doing up a house. I mean, that's absolutely fine. But it's a really, really lovely bit of television. So Alan and Amanda's Greek Adventure and Banjo and Rose Grand Island Hotel, my recommendations for the week. But I will also be reading that John Lanchester novel. What was it called again?
Look What You Made Me Do.
That's a good title as well. Look What You Made Me Do.
Right. We are back on Thursday.
Yes, our Q&A is...
with Tim Davie, the outgoing Director General of the BBC, which promises to be extremely interesting.
You sent in some genuinely brilliant questions.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of you all. There were some really good questions there. Really good questions.
And our bonus episode this week is on the Village People, who 50% of the band appear to think is a straight band, has only ever been a straight band, and 50% of the band think is a gay band.
It's a really good. It's a really
such a fascinating
it's a great
story.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can join as a member, therestersentertainment.com. Otherwise, we'll see you on Thursday.
See you on Thursday, everyone.